My name is Lucas, and I'm 34 years old. 6 months ago, I buried the love of my life in a quiet cemetery overlooking the lake she used to paint in her sketchbooks. I remember how the wind moved through the trees that day, soft, almost apologetic, as if nature itself was trying to whisper, "I'm sorry." But the silence from my family was louder than anything the wind could carry. Her name was Elena. She was everything. We met in college. One of those meet cuties people always assume are made up for movies. I dropped a coffee on her laptop. She cursed under her breath while I scrambled to apologize and promise I'd pay for everything. She didn't smile, not then, but she called me later that night using a friend's phone just to say, "You seem nervous, but honest. Want to try again?" No caffeine this time. That was us, chaos into calm. We got married 5 years ago. Quiet ceremony, barely 30 people. No fuss, just laughter, vows, and her soft, "I do," that still rings in my head when I wake up too early and too alone. We were planning to start IVF. The one thing we hadn't been able to control was the one thing we wanted most, a child. She had a list of baby names on the fridge. Every morning I'd wake up, make coffee, and smile at Milo and Nina, written in marker. Then came the accident. A texting driver. She was walking back from the corner store with our prescriptions and a bouquet of flowers for no reason other than she loved the smell of fresh lilies. I got the call from the hospital, and I remember thinking it was a mistake. Like maybe she'd been in a minor fender bender, or they mixed her up with someone else. But no, no mix-up, no chance, no goodbye. I called my parents that night. I could barely speak. I didn't have the strength to cry yet. My voice cracked. "Elena's gone." Silence. Then my dad's voice, low, distracted. "Son, we've already RSVP'd to something more important." I thought I misheard. "What?" I asked. He sighed like I was being difficult. "Your brother's promotion party. It's this weekend, remember? We're hosting it at the house. It's been on the calendar for months." I was stunned. "Dad, the funeral is Saturday." His voice turned sharp. "You should have picked a different day. We've got caterers, guests, family coming in from out of town." I remember just standing there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. My wife had just passed away. The woman I loved, my entire world, was gone, and my own father was telling me they wouldn't come because they had a party planned. For my brother, Ethan. Ethan, the golden child. 6 years younger, twice as loud, half as thoughtful. Ever since we were kids, the world revolved around Ethan's next big thing. Little League? Dad was the coach. High school play? Mom made costumes. College graduation? They threw a backyard bash for 100 people. When I graduated with honors from law school, they sent a card with no return address and a $50 Amazon gift card. I stopped expecting anything from them long ago, but this was a new level of cold. I buried Elena alone. Well, not totally. Her sister flew in from Oregon. A couple college friends. My boss came, stood near the back, and said nothing but held my shoulder when I started to fall apart. But my family? Not one of them. Not my parents. Not Ethan. Not even a text from Mom. Nothing. And the worst part? I didn't even feel surprised. Just numb. In the weeks after, I tried to grieve. I really did. I stayed home from work, stared at our wedding photos, tried to eat, failed. I went to grief counseling. It helped. A little. But what helped more was anger. Cold, focused anger. The kind that doesn't scream or punch walls, but calculates, and waits, and builds. See, I wasn't just a lawyer. I was the youngest senior associate at one of the fastest growing firms in the city. I had contacts, resources, a brain wired for problem solving. I had also recently started working on high-profile financial litigation cases, cleaning up corrupt boardrooms and bankrupting CEOs who thought they were untouchable. Turns out, rage paired with skill is a deadly combination. I didn't make a plan overnight. It wasn't a movie montage. But as the months passed and I started showing up to court again, started winning again, I stopped pretending I could forgive what they did. Or didn't do. They had made a choice, and I was going to let them live with it. The turning point came in early spring. I was in the middle of preparing a civil suit against a real estate tycoon who defrauded dozens of families. A pro bono case. Personal. In a way, Elena hated landlords like him. She once called them legal pirates. The case caught traction. A journalist interviewed me outside the courthouse. I kept it brief, polite, but the article blew up. 2 days later, I got an email from a senior partner at a major firm in New York. They offered me a spot, partner track. I said I needed time to think, but I already knew the answer. I flew up that weekend, saw the office, met the people. I didn't tell my family. Why would I? Then the headline dropped. Local lawyer topples real estate empire in landmark case. Lucas Hale named one of Forbes 30 under 35 to watch. My inbox exploded. My phone didn't stop buzzing. LinkedIn messages, journalists, old classmates, college professors. And then, a name I hadn't seen in 6 months. Mom. It started with a text. We saw the article. Wow. Congratulations. So proud of you. I stared at it for a long time. Then came another. We'd love to catch up sometime. Maybe dinner next week. Right. Now they were proud. Now that my name was in print. Now that the world had noticed me. I didn't respond. I waited. 2 days later, another text. From Dad this time. Your brother is going through a rough patch. Got laid off. We could use some advice, maybe even a little help. That was the moment it clicked. They hadn't changed. They were just circling back like vultures. I said nothing. Not yet. Because I had something bigger in mind. Something they'd never see coming. And 6 days later, I got a call from the bank. 6 days after my parents tried to casually re-enter my life with a few sugar-coated texts, I got a call from the regional manager of one of the biggest private banks in the state. We'd worked together before, quietly, on asset recovery cases and fraud investigations. Good guy. Smart. Trusted discretion over drama, which I liked. He wasn't calling for small talk, though. Lucas, he said, I've got a situation you might want to know about. Your name came up today during a loan review. I leaned back in my chair. Go on. Your parents, Alan and Teresa Hale, they came in today with your brother. They're applying for a bridge loan to cover a second mortgage. Apparently, Ethan's been out of work for 3 months. Their savings are thin, and they're trying to float him. I blinked. Wait, they're co-signing for Ethan. More than co-signing, he said. They offered their house as collateral. But the loan's too risky. Their debt-to-income ratio is already in the red. Now, here's the thing. They listed you as an emergency contact. Said you might be able to vouch for their financial stability. I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped. They did what? You heard me, he said. Said you're their son, a successful attorney. Might be able to guarantee the loan. And technically, that gives us reason to request a soft inquiry into your financials if you approve. They signed the release paperwork. I leaned forward, fingers steepled. Let me ask you something, Greg. Hypothetically, if I walked into your branch right now and said I wanted to acquire their mortgage from your books, would that be possible? There was a beat of silence. Then, it's unconventional. But given your track record and the situation, yeah, I think we could work something out. Perfect, I said. Let's talk numbers. See, while my parents were off planning shrimp platters and balloon arches for Ethan's now-defunct promotion, I'd been quietly moving money. A lot of it. Between case bonuses, equity offers from the New York firm, and a private settlement from the real estate case, I had capital. And not just the kind you put into a savings account. The kind that opens doors. Or in this case, closes them. By the end of the week, I had full ownership of their mortgage through a subsidiary account. One I controlled through a holding company with a discreet, unassuming name. To them, nothing had changed. Same payment address. Same contact number. Same fine print. But now, every missed payment came straight to me. Every financial detail. At my fingertips. I didn't tell them. Not yet. I waited. A month passed. They sent more texts. Invitations to brunch. My mom left a voicemail on Easter Sunday. We were hoping to see you. We miss you, Lucas. And Ethan could really use your support right now. He's struggling. Struggling. Like I hadn't spent every night for 3 months struggling to sleep without the warmth of Elena's legs tangled in mine. Like I hadn't stood alone at her grave every Sunday since, whispering things I wished I'd said sooner. Ethan was struggling. But when I needed a single ounce of support, they were too busy hanging up streamers and raising champagne flutes. I didn't reply. Then came the payment default. They were 2 weeks late on their mortgage. I let it slide. Gave them a quiet grace period. Then another missed payment. That's when I knew it was time. I showed up at their bank unannounced, walking through the front doors in a sharp charcoal suit. No tie, clean-shaven, calm. Greg met me in the lobby, gave me a tight nod, and led me to a private meeting room. 5 minutes later, the door opened again. My parents walked in with Ethan. My mother froze when she saw me. My dad's face went tight. Ethan looked confused. Lucas, my mother said, her voice cracking. What are you doing here? I stood slowly, slipped a folder from my leather briefcase, and placed it on the table. You wanted financial support. So here I am. Let's talk about your situation. My dad frowned. Wait, are you? Are you handling our loan? I opened the folder, revealing the payment history. Interest rates. Penalty clauses. Every document signed in ink. I own your loan, I said evenly. Technically, a holding company does. But I'm the managing director, which means every missed payment, every refinance request, every foreclosure trigger comes across my desk first. My mom sat down hard. Ethan looked between us like he couldn't decide whether to laugh or run. You, my dad started, voice rising, you bought our debt? No, I said, cutting him off. I bought your house. You just haven't realized it yet. The room went silent. Greg cleared his throat and quietly excused himself. My mom's hands trembled. But why? Why would you? Because 6 months ago, I said, voice low, I called you in the worst moment of my life. And you told me you had something more important to do. You made a choice. Now I have too. Ethan finally found his voice. This is insane. You're going to evict your own parents. I looked at him. Depends. You planning another party anytime soon? The tension in the room crackled. I could see it in their faces, that slow, dawning realization that their golden boy couldn't save them anymore. That the quiet son they dismissed had been paying very close attention. And now? The game had changed. But I wasn't finished. Because what I told them next would break the illusion completely. I let the silence stretch a little longer than necessary. Not for drama, but because I wanted them to feel it. The discomfort, the unease, the growing awareness that this wasn't just about money. It was about memory, about what they discarded without hesitation and what I could no longer forget. You asked why? I said finally, turning back to the folder. Here's another reason. I slid out a photo, glossy, sharp, creased once down the middle from being folded into my wallet for months. Elena, standing barefoot in our old backyard, sun in her hair, laughing. I placed it gently on the table. That was taken a week before she passed. She had just finished painting the nursery walls. Pale yellow. Said it reminded her of sunflowers. My mom blinked, unsure. Nursery. I met her eyes, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel cold. I felt something clear, the kind of still rage that no longer burned, but cut. Elena was pregnant. We hadn't told anyone yet. We wanted to wait until the second trimester. Her hand flew to her mouth. My dad sat stiff as stone. 2 funerals, I said. That's what you missed. Not 1. 2. And you told me it wasn't convenient. Ethan shifted in his seat. Okay. That sucks, man. But this doesn't have to be like this. You're clearly doing well now. You're a big shot, Forbes and all. Can't we just move forward? I turned to him, amazed at the lack of shame in his voice. You're right, I said slowly. I'm doing well. And because of that, I have options. I could foreclose. I could raise the interest rate so high that you drown in penalties before the year's out. I could sell the debt to a collector that makes its money flipping assets out from under desperate families. But I'm not going to do any of that. My mother exhaled in relief. Because I want something else. Her breath caught. I want you to move. Out of the house. In 60 days. My dad's chair scraped backward. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. I've already initiated the legal paperwork. You'll receive notice tomorrow. You have the right to vacate voluntarily, and if you do, I'll waive the remaining balance. Consider it a parting gift. This is revenge, my mom whispered, voice trembling. No, I replied. This is closure. But where are we supposed to go? She asked, panic slipping in. That house is. The one you raised your sons in. The one where you hosted Ethan's big parties. The one you couldn't leave for a few hours to attend your daughter-in-law's funeral. I tapped the photo once. That house. They both sat in stunned silence. Then my father said something I hadn't expected. This is your fault, you know. You've always been sensitive. You expected too much from us. You never tried to be part of the family. I laughed. Out loud. Couldn't help it. You're right, I said, still smiling. I'm not part of the family. And I'm done trying to be. My mother stood suddenly, as if that would end the conversation. You'll regret this, Lucas. You're letting bitterness destroy your soul. I stood too. Calm. Collected. Tired in a way they would never understand. No, Mom. I let you destroy it. This, I motioned to the folder, the bank office, the stunned expressions on their faces. This is me building something new. I looked to Greg, who had stepped just inside the doorway with a clipboard, watching silently. Greg will walk you through the rest. 60 days. I suggest you start packing. I gathered my briefcase, tucked the photo of Elena gently back inside, and turned to walk out. As I reached the door, I heard Ethan mutter, "Unbelievable." I stopped just before stepping out. "No," I said without turning. What was unbelievable was me standing alone at a gravesite while my family popped champagne. That's what I'll never forget. And with that, I left. But that wasn't the end. Because what happened next, the press, the fallout, and the final twist, would drag everything into the light. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't have predicted, was how fast word spread. 2 days after that final meeting at the bank, I got a call from a journalist. Not just any journalist, either. Andrea Lynn, a seasoned financial reporter who had interviewed me once after the real estate lawsuit. Sharp, empathetic, and persistent. She'd heard from someone at the bank, off the record, that the Golden Boy lawyer who took down Weston Properties had just bought his parents' mortgage and evicted them. "I'm not here to judge," she said on the call. "But people will talk. They already are. You want your side told, or should I let the gossip define you?" I agreed to meet her, not for revenge, not for publicity, but for Elena. We sat at a quiet cafe on 4th Street. I showed her the photo of Elena in the backyard. I told her everything. How my parents missed her funeral for a promotion party. How they'd belittled my grief. How they'd erased my pain and expected me to forget it. How I had buried 2 lives that day, my wife's and the illusion of the family I thought I had. Andrea didn't take notes at first. She just listened. At the end, she asked, "Do you regret it? The eviction?" I looked out the window. The trees were blooming. Elena would have loved it. "No," I said, "but I regret needing to." She nodded, and that was it. A week later, the article dropped. The headline was bold but fair. From grief to grit. How Lucas Hale reclaimed his power, one house at a time. It didn't name my parents directly, but the story painted a clear picture. Readers were split, of course. Some called it cruel. Others called it justice. But most surprising, the messages that started pouring in. Hundreds of them. Widows, widowers, estranged children, people who had been dismissed, disrespected, discarded by their families during their darkest hours. They told me I gave them permission to stand up, that I wasn't alone, that they weren't either. And then something strange happened. My parents didn't reach out to deny it. Not once. They didn't threaten me. They didn't show up at my door. I suspect they knew that if they challenged me, I'd go public with everything. The messages, the voicemails, even the time-stamped photo of the empty row at the funeral, where they should have been sitting. Instead, they packed quietly. On day 58, I received confirmation that the house had been vacated. The keys were left in the mailbox. The front yard was empty. The doorframe still had the small welcome sign Elena and I had given them for Christmas 5 years earlier. I let it hang there for one more day before removing it. I didn't sell the house. Instead, I renovated it. I tore out the outdated wallpaper in the kitchen, replaced the rusting pipes in the basement, and repainted the nursery. Yes, the nursery. The room where Ethan's childhood trophies once stood. I turned it into something else. A place where other people could come and heal. I converted the entire property into a grief counseling center. Elena House. That's what the sign says now. Free sessions. Weekly support groups. A garden in the back with a bench beneath a tree that blooms in early spring. The first time I walked through the finished space, I cried. Really cried. Not the silent grief I'd been carrying like a brick in my chest for months, but the kind of cry that leaves you lighter, cleansed. The irony wasn't lost on me. The house my parents once used as a shrine to Ethan's achievements had become a sanctuary for people like me, quiet, broken, unseen. And it worked. People came. They sat. They talked. They painted stones with names of loved ones and placed them in the garden. One man donated a grand piano. A woman brought in a therapy dog named Samson. Slowly, the place filled with life again. One day, while walking the garden, I saw a woman sitting on the bench, staring at one of the stones. She was maybe in her 60s. Tired eyes. Beautiful posture. She turned as I passed. "Are you him?" she asked. "Depends," I said, a soft smile playing on my lips. "The one from the article. The son who chose himself." I nodded. She smiled. "My daughter kicked me out when I couldn't babysit during chemo. Said I wasn't pulling my weight. I haven't spoken to her in a year." "I'm sorry," I said. "I used to feel guilty. Now, I think I feel free. I sat with her in silence for a long time, just breathing, watching the wind move the branches. That was the final gift Elena gave me, something I couldn't see when she left this world. Not just love, not just memories, but clarity. A mirror held up to everything I'd accepted that I didn't have to. Her death was cruel, random, unfair, but my healing? That part I could build. And I did. As for Ethan, last I heard, he moved in with a friend. He started some side hustle reselling sneakers online. Still posting selfies. Still waiting for someone else to bail him out. My parents? They're renting a one-bedroom apartment in a nearby town. I suspect they tell their neighbors a different story. That they downsized. That they're close to retirement. That their eldest son is a successful lawyer in New York. Maybe that's true, in part. I let them have their narrative. But they don't have me. And that's the difference. I still visit Elena's grave. Every Sunday. I bring her lilies. I tell her what's new. Sometimes, I read her the thank you notes we get at Elena House. She always likes stories with good endings. This one took time, but I think she'd be proud.